You just go over there. You can leave a 5-star review if you've enjoyed it, or a written review is great too.
Awesome. All right, so let's get rolling. So here in the studio with us today are the New York Times best-selling authors, Jeremy and Audrey Roloff. Hi, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hey, I like that title.
Absolutely. Hey,
fun.
not everybody gets to wear that.
I know. Good to be here.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, all right. Well, hey, we're not strangers to you guys.
Yeah,
No.
not at all.
No, we were actually trying to think about how we first met you, which was, I think, about 4 years ago. How long have you been married?
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years.
Okay.
And we moved to Bend 1 year into our marriage, so it would have been around then.
Yep,
Yeah, 4 years
absolutely.
ago, just over. So
one of the memories I have of first meeting Audrey, at least, well, both of you, I suppose. Matt had gotten together with you several times, and I remember he told me about you, this young couple, newlyweds that he'd met, but I kind of didn't really. I guess I didn't listen carefully. But
yeah.
anyway,
Well, you guys probably meet with a lot of newlyweds.
so
Another one.
Yeah.
and you came to visit our home church in our house.
Yeah.
And you were there for the service. And what we do in our church is we of course have the morning service meeting time, and then we have lunch, and then we all hang out afterwards. So we all were having lunch, and Audrey was kind of sitting there quietly, and Matt invited Jeremy to go over and check out his garden, because for Central Oregon, he's got a pretty decent
Hey, Roloff
garden.
Farms. Jeremy's
Yeah.
a man of the soil.
Yes.
So I thought he'd like that.
I'd
But
appreciate it. I did.
Yeah, exactly. And Audrey and I kind of tagged along, and I thought, I want to kind of make conversation. I wanted to make you feel welcome. And so I asked you, I said, so what is it you do? I mean, other than the wife to Jeremy, what are some ways you spend your time? And you kind of looked at me for just a second, like, is she serious?
does she not know who you are?
Audrey.
No,
No,
it was only
great.
a second.
It was
Yeah.
just a second. And I saw the look. I didn't know what it meant. And then you said, well, I do have I have a blog and Hodgepodge. And I said, oh, that's so sweet. I just love that you're doing that. And I just wanted to encourage you in this little enterprise
Yeah.
you were investing in. And you just
right.
let me just encourage you. And
See, we don't watch TV. So
Yeah.
we didn't know you guys were stars on television for
I had no
12
idea.
years. Whatever.
in fact,
Yeah, right.
so this went on for,
Which is our favorite. We
Yeah.
love that.
It's so funny.
no.
it was
that's-
great. So several months
But you
later,
didn't flinch.
right? No, we just kept
It
carrying
was
on.
very gracious, actually.
And several months later, I happened to see a copy of People magazine with a picture of your wedding on the cover of it.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my, what are they doing on that magazine?
What happened?
And I
A
asked,
lot of life happened in that month or that year.
Yeah.
and I had to ask Audrey, can I ask you something? Why are you guys on People magazine? She's like, well, we have this, Jeremy grew up on this reality TV show. I had no idea.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah. No, we
And-
love that.
And I loved that about Audrey. I thought it spoke so well of her that no, seriously, you were humble. You didn't happen to mention that you were celebrities, and you were just very authentic and real. And that was my first impression of you, and one that's really been lasting to me.
Thanks. Yeah.
All right. So probably should get to the big news first. How's Ember?
She's good. Such a little spitball. And
Happy and healthy. It's trying to. She will play this song in the car sometimes. It's the alphabet, and
Yeah.
she will go through every letter.
she's
That
a
is-
talker.
how old is she
Like,
now?
she's a very much
She's
talker.
21 months.
Yeah,
my
she's
word.
not even two
That's
yet,
almost
right?
two.
Not
Awesome.
even two.
That's
she will
awesome.
repeat everything we say. She'll sit and read her books.
Of course,
She's
there's a
really
real
into
danger.
singing.
There's actually a real
I know.
danger in letting your kids learn to, learn the alphabet and learn to read early. Because don't try spelling things
Yeah,
out.
then it's like, we ran out of MILK.
Yeah,
now
like-
she's going to know.
Let's go get some ICECREA.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember kids
Exactly.
saying,
You're in
"Can we
trouble.
watch an MOVIE?" Like, oh, I guess they figured that one out.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
So
She's so
she's
cute.
good.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny.
She's a talker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
She's so
we're,
fun.
we're having fun.
Well, the other thing I just love about her is it's like she's evaluative beyond her years. So she'll look at you
Yeah.
and she will make an assessment.
Yeah.
And you just feel the
You
scrutiny.
can,
Yeah,
like,
right?
am I going to pass
Totally.
or not?
But I have to say that I felt like
Yeah, no, you won
I
the day.
passed muster because what was it, a few
she
weeks
wanted
back
you to color.
we were coloring with each other, coloring crayons. So that was
Friends ever after that.
all right. Hey, it's just awesome to be with you guys today, and we really appreciate you taking the time because you did win the busiest people of the year award, didn't you? Something like that.
I don't know if they notified
Right?
you,
Yeah,
but
right.
yeah, you won.
And it's a big
It's
award.
It's a bad thing. It's not a badge of pride.
I know it's a truthful assessment, but it's definitely something we're trying to
Yeah. Working through.
push against right now. Yeah.
Well, Super. All right. Well, hey, today we're here and we want to talk about investing in your marriage. So seems to me the best place to start talking about investing is Wall Street. And no,
Okay, help me out here.
This is about investing, right? For a return. And
Yeah.
Okay.
how goofy would it be for the guy to say, you know what, I'm just really into this Wall Street thing and the stock market and I'm just waiting for a return. And you go, well, are you going to invest any money in a company? Are you going to take the money and put it somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Why do we go through the months, years, and the life and not invest in our marriges thinking that we're going to have a great marriage, thinking there's going to be a return? That's pretty common, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. That is a great analogy.
So we want to ask you guys a quick question. Super busy season for you. What has been the biggest challenge for the two of you in the season? And how about we just start with Jeremy first? What's the biggest challenge in this season for your marriage?
Yeah, so like you guys just said, we have definitely been in a high pace, busy season, and I would say, right off the bat, for us, the biggest challenge would be margin, or rather where we spend our time, because we've just been going at on a high octane, go, project after project, and just finding margin or recreate or I would just say adequate margin, like space that's actually more than a couple seconds or a couple minutes, but hey babe, let's take a full day off. You know what I mean? Like a full day or even the whole weekend and go do something. That's been a challenge.
So in the midst of the busyness, the marriage is getting set
the
over
marriage
here.
has been we've been feeling that, so it's everyone goes through seasons, and thankfully this has been kind of a short one, but we've definitely felt the pressure of what the world and today's culture wants to do to marriage. And for us, we've noticed that firsthand in our time management. It's just
hustle,
busy, work, do more, say more, post more, engage more. And we've noticed, and we're fully aware of that, that's what's happening. And I'd like to say don't buy into that narrative, but we feel the pressure of it. And that's been a challenge, especially as I try to lead us in a healthy way and spiritually, it's very difficult. And that's for me. I don't know, babe, did you expect me to say that?
Yeah, that's what I literally would have said.
Okay.
Almost verbatim. And I think just our
we're
attitudes.
we're on the same page.
That.
I think just our attitudes towards each other, in times when you're more stressed out, when you're overworked, when you're not connecting on an as regular basis, or you're out of some of your normal rhythms, you just are a little snappier with each other, a little more critical of each other, a little less loving, and a little more schedule oriented, or I think that we've been in that mode for a while, and it's been hard to get out of it.
So for those of you who don't know, and because we don't want to assume that everyone does, maybe they're like me and they don't watch reality TV. No, you recently came out with a new book, A Love Letter Life, and for behind the scenes, launching a book like that, it's a big deal. It takes a lot more than probably most people realize. You have a lot going on anyway, but I would say that's what I've observed, that was just all the interviews and all the things that come with that. So since we're talking about A Love Letter Life for just at least a minute, can you just take a minute and tell us what that book was about and what inspired you? And
definitely.
And what is inspiring gazillions of people, because you don't get on the New York Times bestseller list and stay there for a long time without that happening. So
yeah, totally. So the book's A Love Letter Life, Pursue Creatively, Date Intentionally, and Love Faithfully. And those are all verbs, active, proactive ways that, we feel builds and sustains a beautiful love story. So we wrote the book primarily to ignite and equip people to view their love story as exactly that, the story that they're writing. Because at the end of our life, we're all going to watch our life song. We're going to hear our life song, played back to us, and we're going to watch our love story played back to us. And we just, we want to challenge people to ask themselves the question, what kind of story are you writing? And are you going to like what you hear at the end?
And it sounds, from what you just described, that's exactly what you're asking yourself in these
Exactly.
busy weeks
Exactly.
that you've come off your book tour.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So that's kind of what the book goes through.
You always write about what you need to hear, right?
The book goes through our story, like how we met, how we prepared for marriage, the early chapters of our marriage, if you will, and just kind of some core concepts that we found were very helpful in that process. And so that's primarily what the book breaks down. Yeah.
And for those of you who are listening and haven't read this book or got a copy of this book, I would recommend it. It doesn't matter if you're a newlywed or if you've been married for years. I've read it. I found it very inspiring, encouraging, a really good refresher, even if you have been married for a long time, to think back on those things. So I would put that on the high recommendation list.
Absolutely. It's a powerful book. And I actually love that picture that you paint, Jeremy. And by the way, Jeremy is a wordsmith, right? He paints with words. And you use that phrase of your life, your marriage, your relationship is a song that is going to be played back to you, you know, and that just bringing out that personal responsibility that we have for what we're actually writing. So I just love that.
Yeah, totally.
Have you ever met anybody who isn't busy and distracted? I mean, it's just
It's part of our age.
It's where we live, right? Everybody, in the last 10 years, I've never met anybody that doesn't think that there's literally no room anywhere in their schedule for anything. And yet there we are in the
it's
sausage
something we
factory,
pride ourselves in.
stuffing back in.
It's
Yeah,
the
right.
new
Why?
it's the new badge of honor.
Yeah.
If you're not busy, you're boring. You're nobody.
Or you're not
You're
important
lame,
or
you're not
valuable or
But
something.
it used to be like in our parents' generation, like when they were growing up, leisure
their
was a
generation.
sign.
Yeah.
Leisure
No.
was a sign of wealth and status,
Interesting,
and that you're doing something important. And now it's like
You're
no
leading-
leisure
It's
is
right.
a time.
If you're
is
on
a-
vacation, you better be working with the laptop open
yeah.
and post it to Instagram.
So what the big casualty, and we've kind of touched on this already, but the big casualty in this busy, frenetic, distracted world, and I really like, babe, something that you said earlier today, because I was talking about how busy we all are. And you said it's not only that we're busy, we're distracted too, because you can sit down and watch Netflix for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're busy, but you're just filling your life with all of these distractions. But our good intentions are still there, right? By the way, I am the king of good intentions, right? My intentions toward this little blonde bombshell next to me, they're so amazing. Jeremy, your good intentions are probably really amazing too.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So,
Not
but what we find is that our good intentions are no match for today's crisis and tomorrow's urgency, right?
Oh,
So
that's good.
relative to our marriage. So it's always the thing that gets set aside. So Audrey, I have a question for you. How do you feel about Jeremy's good intentions?
That's good.
Oh dear.
That's good.
Yeah. I mean, I think just on the whole, I think it's something that we. You mean particularly to
nice.
business?
They're nice.
The
The point
business?
is that our
The
hearts.
point is they're nice to know about, but they're hollow. Right?
Yeah, totally. Because where's the follow through
Yeah,
in the,
it's
in the
like-
busyness
it's
and the
like-
distraction?
I like that you said you love me, but can I feel it? Can you show me? That's kind of, I think,
Right.
Is there
And I
some
think the
priority time
follow
invested there?
through-
Yes.
Yeah, I think the follow through and the consistency, like, because Jeremy will often have like creative solutions. He's a very like, he wants to solve problems, whether it's in our marriage or whatever. And so he'll bring a solution to the problem, but then the lack of follow through on that solution, that's where I think
My
things
intention
kind of
is to
break
solve
down.
it.
Your
Yeah,
intention
Well,
is
totally. And that's the point.
But that's where we have to get to this place where we decide what our actual priorities are, because what we say our priorities are isn't necessarily the case. It's what we're actually doing. That is our real priority.
Yeah.
You know, I think we tend to think, this is just generally now, like that we're okay because our marriage isn't on fire. And at least not at first, right? But then time goes by and then you realize, oh, there's some smoke and something's smoldering here. And that's when you kind of wake up like, oh, how did we get here? And that's when people generally start to address the problem or the marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
So we want to ask something of both of you. Audrey, how do you think about and handle all of the pressures that we've been talking about, pushing your marriage out of the way? Like, how do you handle that? Do you flare up? Do you pull in?
Yeah.
Do you melt down? All of the above?
It depends.
Okay.
Well, I think it's
I'm a verbal processor though, so like
Okay. So I was just
if
gonna
things
say
get to be too much for me, I will dump truck them on Jeremy and like want to talk through them.
and we've learned that I don't necessarily handle that very well because I respond.
He wants to solve them
with
instead of
fixing them all.
Yeah, he wants to just solve them.
So that's been a fun thing to process and work through, definitely. But Audrey's definitely she reacts, I would say. Right?
What do you mean?
Like you react to them. Like there's a lot of stuff coming in. You're doing something. You're reacting. You're sending the email. You're very, you react to the pressure coming in.
Yeah. And I would say I am, when things come up for us in our marriage, like I'm also a very like I want to solve it quickly, and I have the same sense of urgency that I do with work with like problems in our marriage. And so when it doesn't get solved quickly, or like I tend to sometimes not be patient. Some things just need to like some time, or sometimes we just need some time to simmer, or Jeremy needs some time to process something, whereas like I'm like I want to address it tonight before we go to bed and solve the problem tonight. And and I think sometimes I just need to be a little bit more patient in that and allow some space for him to process and
I think
simmer time.
I think that can be the same with both of us as well, that Matt wants to just get to the bottom of it. And let's just solve it. And I'm, as we talked about,
Well, we
Jeremy,
often talk about how we have the same personalities,
we're
just
swapped.
Yeah, exactly.
And
totally.
And I actually want the space I do most of the time better if I have a little space
And you'll come back with usually something very appropriate and
thought
adequate and thought
through.
through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So got a specific question for each one of you. So wondering, Jeremy, is there something every day that you do in your marriage, in your relationship, just something, it doesn't have to be big. It can be something small that you do every day that just says, I love you more than I love me. Yeah. Is there something that you do toward Audrey? And you've got some time because we're going to ask you to.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like is our answer going to be the same?
Probably. Like the one thing that comes immediately to my brain is, how you start your day and how you end your day it's the bookend of your day, and you sleep on that and then you live your day off of that. And so for us, our kiss goodnight, our very intentional kiss goodnight is kind of the one thing that I think a lot of people do that, but that is like it's one of those things that for us has been this consistent staple of like no matter what the day brought, no matter what. And then when you wake up and have a good morning kiss, no matter what the day is going to bring, we're in this together, we're a team, we're one. And it's just for us that physical.
So is that your answer too?
Yeah, like I was going to say, I feel like they're kind of us things that we reciprocate them to each other. Like there's not something specific that I can, and maybe this is something I need to think about.
I will say though, we also work together. And so we're together all day. And so we spend 7 days, we spend almost every single day together. We work together. We run a company together. We there's a bunch of, so if that wasn't the case,
together.
I can almost guarantee it that we would have, like our noon o'clock call would probably be kind of like our premarital counselors, right? We'd have something a little bit more like how do we engage when we're not together. But for us, like, we're looking at each other, we're talking to each other, we're touching
But sometimes
each other.
even though you can be physically together, you're still not connecting.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we realize we do kind of use that as a cop out a lot because we are together so much, but then we still need to have those intentional carved out times.
Yeah, totally true.
But one thing that we've been doing that I feel like has been really helpful just lately, we go to bed together like pretty much 95% of the time. Like we go to bed at the same time.
Yeah.
And I know some people's schedules and jobs don't allow for that, and it's totally something that I think we've been blessed to be able to do, but also a choice that we've consciously made in our marriage. And I think that allows us to have the kiss goodnight and to just have that connecting time in bed to just sort of like recap the day real quick or whatever. But also something that we've been doing just in the past like couple months is and we don't do it every night, so it's not perfect, but we have these little slips of paper in both of our nightstand drawers, and we just write down like one thing. Like I write down one thing that Jeremy did today that I really appreciated or that I was grateful for, or some character thing that I saw in him, just some word of affirmation. And then Jeremy does the same, and like I have pink slips and Jared has blue slips, and we have this mailbox in our room, and we literally like just put them in the mailbox. And this is something that Jeremy did for me as a birthday gift like years ago, and Jeremy for 1 year straight wrote something on a slip of paper and put it in a jar for me.
Okay,
that was
that's
like a birthday
great.
gift idea.
Yeah.
And I loved it so much. And then this year we thought, like, let's revitalize that in our marriage, but like do it reciprocal and like do it for each other.
As a way to not.
And it's just a good way to, like, not only in our marriage, but just to be more thankful in general, like to think about
Absolutely.
No, that's really powerful.
one thing I was thankful for in Jared.
Well, it's different than like the kiss that can be like, okay, good night. You know, it's like,
It's just
okay,
a little
activate the
extra
brain
step
cells.
of intentionality.
Activate the brain
Right.
cells.
Not because it can fall into
More
routine. It can
effortful.
become,
Yeah,
you know.
but-
recognize
Yeah.
something. It has to be different every day, you know, and so it's a little bit more engaging, which I don't know why I didn't say that up front, but yeah. That's
So since you're working together all the time, I have a follow-up question on that. Do you find that you have become or can fall into being business partners?
Oh, yeah.
Rather than, so what do you do to protect the marriage part of the business together?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things there. For us, first of all, we love working together.
Yeah.
It's so fun and allows for a lot of freedom. And so I almost want to take this question straight to kind of like a small business problem. And that is when you don't control, a lot of people go into small business together because they want more freedom. But if you don't put boundaries around freedom, then you then become slave to the thing that's
Sure.
supposed to give you freedom. So for us, you know, we've definitely had seasons and cycles of feeling slaves to what we do and spending time together. And for us, there's been a couple grounding things that we do really to help us, you know, with our boundaries and keep us on track, I guess you could say, or focusing on our marriage. And what is it, babe? Our walks. We have these like post-dinner, pre-dinner walks. And this is good because Ember, because we have a nanny 2 to 3 days a week a lot of the time. And so we go home and we do our walk. And this is a lot for Ember, but it's also for us to be with Ember.
Yeah.
We go to the park, we connect, and that's kind of a rhythm, a cadence that hasn't been perfect, but that's definitely something we make time for.
Yeah.
And as a way, and also no phone times and zones. That's been one thing because the lure of work and being together.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's just like it's like my precious.
It's right there.
It's
Yeah.
right there. It's always
Exactly.
calling our name.
Yeah.
And so that's a way for us to kind of hey, life isn't all about work and what we're doing. Often the Lord is more concerned with what He's doing in us than through us. And then our marriage journal, for sure.
Yeah.
Is
I would say also though, like our Sunday Sabbath, we do not get on social media on
yeah.
Sundays. We do not open our emails. We do not work. It's our day to like we connect with each other. We connect
Absolutely.
with other people. We've kind of made that a hard like
Lord.
we
So you
don't
literally
go on
turn
our
your phones off?
We don't turn our
Or-
phones off. Like
okay.
we still text people and stuff, but we just no
But-
apps, no.
Okay.
but we're in the process
anything.
of getting a Sabbath phone.
Jared has one. But we've
Seriously.
had some technical issues in trying to like
there's
get the
been-
numbers to transfer. to each
Yeah,
other.
there's been some technical issues, which is delayed.
Sabbath
that, but
phone.
A Sabbath phone.
I wonder if there's like a rabbi somewhere that can help you with that.
Yeah, right. Something's
That's
for
a good
sale
idea.
somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. Eh?
Yeah.
So no, that's very cool.
That's been a huge
Those are just a couple things that keep us kind of, focused on each other. our
Well, and
marriage.
and really the word that comes out of that all of this is intentional. You're not letting life, your day. I mean, hey, we have seasons where we're not
Yeah.
tracking, but generally speaking,
There's a principle.
you're not letting it happen to you. You're purposing how it's going to unfold, and that's super critical and important.
So we talk daily, and what we want to talk about next is what you would do every week other than your Sabbath in
Yeah.
investing in your marriage. But
Hey, before we do, I just want to say something that I saw speaking of social media, that I saw recently. I think it was on your Insta story.
Instagram.
Or rather Instagram. Oh, the post that Audrey wrote.
Yeah.
Right. And essentially, you were basically just going on record to say, you know what, folks? It ain't all perfect.
Yeah.
And there was just a real sense of authenticity there and a sense of openness. And I think a lot of people want everybody to think of their lives as what they are presenting or curating on Instagram. And you were just saying, hey, of course, we're careful with what we post and how we present ourselves. But we want you to know that we've had an extremely tough week. And we just want to be honest about that and open about that. And you know what? I deeply appreciate that. And that just speaks to authenticity. And it's just great so that you don't present this impossible standard of a perfect life that nobody can achieve. But you know what? Somebody else appreciated it too. And I don't know if you know this, but Yahoo Entertainment got a hold of that
Did you know about this?
Yeah. Well, there.
I saw people.
Well, no, The Blast. It was in The Blast, which is an entertainment, online entertainment magazine, and a woman named Lynn Versluis wrote an article about you and about you too, Jeremy. They talked about both of you, and Yahoo Entertainment picked it up. It was just yesterday, and they're basically talking about how you're getting real and honest about your marriage.
Yeah.
And you wrote, I think, a follow-up bit as well on the topic.
Yeah.
And right, so we
We
often
really appreciated it.
Well, it was super positive, right?
Wow.
It was
cool.
very, very, very positive. And so
cool.
anyway, so the fact is you had a huge impact with that authenticity.
That's
and honesty.
that's really cool. And that I just want to say, I think people are getting fatigued with the highlight reel of social media, primarily because social media has become our resumes. So like, how do you think you're going to date someone if they go to scope you on social media and there's sadness there? Or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure.
you got it's our resumes, not just for dating, but for jobs, but for also you want to look at it and feel happy emotions, and so it's this curated sub life that we all put out there, and I think a lot of people that what we didn't process, at the beginning of this whole social media craze, everyone as a culture, what I mean is how the digestion of what we're all putting out would go, and I think we're all now really getting tired of absorbing only one side of everyone's story.
Yeah.
And so I think, vulnerability and
Absolutely.
realness is definitely the next asset in the social media space, because that's the only, in writing our book, actually, we say this, like, the world doesn't need another highlight reel, and you're never going to change the world unless you relate to people. And so we figured, let's do that with our book.
And I think one of the things you guys were saying is not that, hey, we've had these struggles, and I think from a Christian describing some of these things, we can say, hey, I was short, or I was snippy, or well, it's called sin, right?
Yeah.
Sinning against each other, right? So you weren't saying that that's okay.
No.
You're just saying that that's where we've been walking, and we want to get back. We want to get away from that, and we want to get back on track with each other.
Yeah.
And and the fact of the matter is you can get to a place in your marriage where those times are diminished. They're less and less and less and less. I mean,
absolutely.
And
well, not just because of how long you've been married.
Well, that's for sure,
you can
because
stay
there are
the
plenty of
same,
people that have been married for a while.
but if you're intentional and purposeful, and
Absolutely.
it's not because you've just had these years, but
Right.
that you are really,
Totally.
And I was even thinking just the last few weeks, for some reason, I was thinking about after almost 27 years of marriage, how there are certain things that we've learned we're learning not to trigger each other. Just even, let's say, I thought about, because Matt was heavy about something. And I think the younger me would have like prodded him and like, what's wrong? And why are you, and I just stopped myself and realized, what the loving thing to do right now is actually to just give him some space to hold this heavy thing, and not to make, interject myself and make me,
Totally.
Now, I tried to think of something myself where, I've had to grow and everything, but really, it's really Lisa who's needed to do all the growing in our
all our
relationship.
listeners know the story.
Hopefully somebody out there believes that. Anybody?
See the voice.
Yes, the voice.
All right. So you asked a question and we got derailed. What was it?
Let's talk about what the two of you do weekly to invest in your marriage, and what do you do, and what do you encourage other couples to do?
Yeah, so I would say, and this is good because this is actually a perfect segue coming off of what we just talked about being real and vulnerable and whatnot, and us being in a overworked, busy, kind of tight, anxious space for a couple weeks. It's a result definitely of, I think, just the pace we've been running at. And again, for listeners that might not know, we do more than write books.
Oh, that's
we
for
run
sure. Yeah.
websites, we have podcasts, we have a retail store, a clothing line, all the things. And so we've really been going at a high pace. And so we're kind of right now reaping some of the fruit that type of lifestyle yields. And part of it also is we got out of, since book tour, we had a crazy month-long book tour, really, really intense season. Since that season, this was about a few weeks, a month ago or so, we got out of the rhythm of doing something that we do every week, and that is our marriage journal. And it's just called The Marriage Journal. And it's something that our premarital counselors encouraged us to do. And they've been doing it now for 20 plus years every week. And they encouraged us to start doing it. So we started doing that. We eventually turned it into an actual product, themarriagejournal.com, if you want to check it out. But anyways, we sit down every single week and we ask each other 6 questions. And it's just a way to intentionally connect, communicate, and ultimately grow in love. But the journal starts out with a calendar. So we go through our week. Hey, date night's not going to happen unless we plan it. When
So
do you
true
want-
for
that's great.
just about
Quality time
everybody.
never happens on accident, right? So like,
Right.
okay, here's a blank week ahead. This isn't for like your to-do lists and blah, blah, blah. This is like for your marriage. So like, what are we going to do this week intentionally? What are we going to plan to make our marriage a priority, to ultimately have the bedrock of our life rest on a healthy marriage? Because out of that stems obviously a healthy life.
And we will put like big things
Big
in it down
things,
there
sure,
and events
sure.
and things that we both need to be at.
Primarily the calendar, the journal's for the marriage. So yeah.
Or if it's like we really want to hang out with this couple, you know, or it's our time to go like, oh, I talked to so-and-so about hanging out Friday. And Jeremy to say, well, I talked to so-and-so about hanging out Friday. Instead of Friday coming and going, well, I committed to this and you committed to that and we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
It's our time to like get our commitments in line and our
Communicate.
expectations.
Totally.
So.
And then there's a weekly encouragement or whatever, that we can read or anyone can read just to spark some conversation. But anyways, the core of the journal is 6 questions. So we start and we go like, hey, babe, what brought you joy this week?
What brought you joy? Is that the question?
What brought you joy
What
this
brought you
week?
joy?
It's the first one, because most spouses we've noticed, and even in our short time being married, we've noticed we can sometimes more often tell you what Audrey did that like annoyed me this week than what she did that brought her joy this week.
Okay.
And I think that's super interesting.
Absolutely.
And so that hedges
We're
against
just deciding to focus on the positive side
on
of
the
the
encouragement.
situation. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And just knowing what brings your spouse joy. Like, I think it can change in different seasons. And then you just, it's this being a student of your spouse concept where you get to learn more about them through the things that they love or that bring them life or that they're grateful for. And so
Yeah.
that question alone starts the journal off with this tone of like, I want to know you more. I want to understand you better. And then it goes into, you know, what's one thing that was hard this week? What's something I can do for you this week? Is there any unconfessed sin or unresolved hurt or conflict that we need to seek forgiveness for or work through? And that question is kind of, you know, the question in the week where when we have things that we just didn't have a good time to talk about it, things that came up in the week but
Sure.
we just didn't really get there.
Yeah.
We were in public setting and we couldn't address something or we were whatever. And so that's our time to like have that. And some weeks it's like, no, nothing. You know, we just roll right through. Some weeks that question alone takes 30 minutes. You know?
Right.
So
Do you actually write in the journal, or is this a talking point?
So we actually
so
take
we-
turns writing each week. So like
So we
Jeremy
kinda-
writes one week, then I'll write the next week, and we just write our names like Jer, and then I'll write Jer's answer, Audrey, and I'll write my answer, and then we do that through.
And then
all 6
I'll do it
questions.
next week,
Then next
but-
week Jer will do it.
Yeah, so we kind of jumped right into it, but it's because this has been
awesome.
probably the single most useful, practical, helpful tool that we've found to help us communicate, continue to be a student of each other.
So you guys were doing this on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper for early
We
on,
did
and
it-
then you
yes,
Made a
said,
journal.
you know
Actually
what,
made a journal out
this is incredibly impactful. This can
Yes.
help thousands and tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And so you created this product called the
Yeah.
Marriage Journal.
And we started talking about it in the online space before we created the journal, and people were also doing it on 8.5 by 11
And sending us photos
and sending
of
us
it.
photos.
nice.
And people before the actual first rendition of the Marriage Journal came out, which since then we've kind of taken people's feedback and made it even better and added some things to the beginning. And but it's just so funny because people will have like their version and then like our first version and now the new version,
Sure.
and they've been doing it for 3 years
How
and they're
awesome.
still doing it. And so
awesome.
Yeah, it's
it's been a
amazing.
really cool
So it really
thing to watch
is
grow.
this is an investment. It's a time. You're
Yes.
purposing to spend the time to focus on it, weaving the fabric of your relationship together.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that
awesome.
you've turned it into, I mean, not that the paper idea isn't fun,
Yeah.
but that it's in a book and it's something
Yeah.
that you can actually just keep and
Yep.
as a record and
Yeah.
as your journey as a couple together, and even something you could pass on to your kids or grandkids.
That's
Like I can
that's
picture my
kind of the idea.
grandkids
There's
reading about.
There's a place to write the year and the volume. So like we hope people have like volumes
Yeah, I
of the
can totally picture it.
It's a recording of the growth of your love. Is kind of one way we put it.
Wow.
And it's a way to not just be a student of your spouse, but also practically talk about the week ahead while also seeking forgiveness for issues. And one of them is like, what's a dream, craving, or desire that's been on the forefront of your mind? Well, you know when you like drop something on your spouse and they're like, what? Like,
Here's all the reasons why that won't work.
Here's all the reasons why that
Oh, that was like our first year of marriage when I said, let's move to St. Petersburg, Russia.
But,
remember that? Yeah,
but,
right.
Matt, I bet in your brain, you've been wrestling with that idea.
Oh, I was thinking
but
about
never
forever.
spoke it.
You've worked out every single kink, every single concept, but then the delivery can sometimes be this dump truck, depending on where your spouse is at. So this question,
I think Lisa would definitely say dump truck on that particular.
So this question, what is a dream, craving, or desire that's been on the forefront of your mind, allows us to, over the course of weeks, months, or potentially years, constantly be kind of expressing where we want to go, what we want to do, things we want to have. So when I say like, hey babe, I think this weekend we're going to go camping. She probably knows it's been on my mind because I've mentioned it in the journal for a month and a half.
Oh,
so she goes,
cool.
you know what? I do think it's finally time to go camping. Let's get that one off the list. You know?
Right.
And so all of our vacations and marriage has pretty much come from that question. That's a fun one I wanted to say because I think that's important.
You know what else I like about this? I like the idea of asking questions because I know that I can assume that Matt's going to tell me what's on his mind. And even Matt's a great communicator and we have good communication, but even still, I will not think to ask him something. And then, we're just sitting there in the evening in our chairs and I'll go, hey, where would you like to go if, we have a chance this summer? And he starts telling me about something. I think, how come you never told me about that? You know? Yeah. And it's because he's not going to necessarily be one to say, here, sit down. I want to tell you my dream, even though he is a good communicator. But so I love the idea of asking questions.
Awesome.
Yes.
So
it's good.
Journal is fantastic. And that's cool. So this is what you guys do every week. You go through it every week and you've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
And
pretty much since our honeymoon.
Well, I even read on your piece, Jeremy, that you said you had, that I referred to a little bit ago in Yahoo Entertainment, that you had said that you kind of, for the last week or two, had kind of stepped out of some of these habits.
Yeah.
And this is how you
for the
started.
journal. Yeah, for the journal, I mean, really since kind of book tour, it kind of threw us up. And which is so funny because like as our book is praise the Lord, doing amazing things and helping people and turning hearts toward the kingdom. Yeah. At the same time, we felt like, I don't want to say attacked, but like,
of course,
we stopped.
No. It would be a natural, just from a spiritual.
Yeah, we just fell out of a lot of rhythms.
Absolutely.
And very quickly, when you're healthy and you lose a day of water, like you kind of, right? Yeah. And so immediately there were kind of results. But the more unhealthy you are, the less you recognize when things are getting worse.
So true. Yeah.
And so for us, it was just this. So anyways, my point is, it's been a couple weeks, a month or so, and we kind of stopped doing the journal, and then immediately we started to recognize like, wow, we're snappier. We're not. I don't really understand why you said that, or why do you want to go do that? It's just for us, it's just been a really healthy tool to.
Awesome. Well, I know that it's not just been for you because the fact of the matter is the first edition sold tens of thousands and would be on the New York Times bestseller list if you guys hadn't published it yourself, right? And continue to. So we know it's just something that we highly recommend to everybody listening.
Great resource.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're stoked on it.
All right, Jeremy, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So when a struggling couple comes to you and the whatever they're struggling about can be any kind of topic, finances, communication, whatever it is, what's the first thing that you like to say to them? And where do you tell them to turn? What's your first piece of advice?
Well, first I like to say, go find someone older and wiser.
Don't talk to me. No.
Don't talk to me.
No, that's not.
But we are huge advocates for turning people. A lot of people feel like Audrey and I found ourselves in this position where a lot of people feel like they can come talk to us, and that's because we're vulnerable online, we're open, we're honest, and we have a heart for marriage, for relationships, and ultimately turn,
and they feel like they can talk to you.
Turn hearts toward the kingdom.
Approachable.
So we're approachable. So people come to us, and we've gotten in a very good habit, I would say, about redirecting those efforts toward their space, their community, because we can't be that for a lot of.
Well, of course not.
Everyone.
I mean, you're
of course not. Yeah. So that being said, there are some close friends that we talk to, and usually it starts with conversation, context, really, because I think you can't help someone unless you have the context in which they're
Asking questions.
They're asking questions, and Matt, I think you said it a little earlier, just loving them. Like, just okay, like, let's just talk, let's chat, what's going on, and being a vent board or a springboard to kind of help them process. Because most of the time, or at least in my experience, if someone has someone to talk to, they will find their own solutions. Like, they just need the sounding board, and they'll kind of work. And then you ask a question or three, and they'll kind of work it through. But, anyways,
Okay.
that's one thing. And what was the question? Was it?
Well, just asking, what is the first thing you like to tell a couple that approach you for just right at the beginning? What is it that you would say to them right out of the chute?
Oh, that was the question. Yeah, I might have rambled there for a minute.
No, that's
Kinda
okay.
depends on what they
Yeah.
are struggling with. I mean, obviously, like,
Honestly, I usually
Depending,
ask,
like,
how's
prayer,
how's your relationship
you know,
with the Lord?
there's
Is
some
usually a first. How's your relationship? If they're a Christian and they're a believer, like, how's your relationship with the Lord? Because that's usually the taproot.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Foundation. So, Audrey, all right. So here you guys get to just put it out there.
what are we putting out there? Oh dear. I'm ready. I'm bracing myself.
Awesome. What is the hardest thing that you've had to get over in your marriage?
Get over.
Yeah. Just in terms of your marriage and
That's a good question.
just over the course of almost
That's a hard
5
question
years.
on the spot.
I know, right? That's why. I
Hardest thing I've ever got to get over. Do you know from me?
Yeah.
Do you know from me?
I think I've had to get over.
Well, you would know if it was, if it was hard for me to get over.
Yeah. Control.
No. I would say, okay.
Audrey likes to, you're a super strong woman, strong-willed, and with that has come definitely some my way or the highway. I control tactics in which she engages with her relationships and lives out life. And I would say a lot of those have been challenged in the first 5 years of our marriage because they don't necessarily work in the context of marriage. I would say that's been a difficult process and a very healthy process for you. Not to say you've lost any of yourself, but you have been wrestling with I think some of that.
Okay.
I have a tendency to, like, firstborn child, very driven, very determined, like, run out ahead, and
You're an
like
8.
take on the leadership role because I'm just naturally inclined to that, and have had to learn to not be that in our marriage. And God gave me actually like this, like, very clear just picture at the beginning of the year of, like, letting Jeremy be my forerunner. And, like, if you think about, like, a race, like, I was a ski racer and a runner, and, like, pacers and
Major
forerunners, they, like,
athlete.
go out ahead and they pace the way for you, and they're not there to compete against you. They're actually there to help you run the race better.
Yep.
And they're just right there, a couple steps ahead, you know what I mean? But running with you, but, like, you're letting them lead you,
Okay.
and trusting that they're going to pace the right pace and that they're going to go the right line on the course or whatever it is. And I think that's been something that, like,
Now-
this year I've tried to just surrender.
Well, listen, first of all, amazing. Thanks for that honesty. That's incredible. And the world thinks you're insane.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Right?
I mean,
Exactly.
pretty much, yeah.
Right? But
Yeah.
the context for your lives is what?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, in terms of who you are in this
Yeah.
world. You are
Not
believers.
by
Yeah, totally.
And so the foundation for the life of the believer is
Often upside
what the word
down.
says.
First
and
is last.
it's against
last
what
is
the word
first.
says.
countercultural.
So,
Absolutely.
but that's amazing. And thank you for that honesty. All
Yeah.
right. That is,
As long
That's
as I
awesome.
don't have to go next.
No,
yeah,
dude.
That's some good honesty.
no, you don't. You
The
don't.
9 over here
No, no,
is
no.
like,
So
wait, I'm getting emotional.
You're okay. Because I'm now directing that question to Lisa. No, I'm kidding.
Do you really want me to answer?
Lisa. Oh,
Yeah.
No, Jeremy, you get to tell us. What is the hardest thing that you've had to get over in marriage?
I would say probably going off of that in the same vein, I've heard it said, and this is a whole fun theological discussion, but the first sin wasn't biting the apple. The first sin was passivity, right? Adam's
Passivity. Yeah.
nature of just watching it all go by, right? And so for me, stepping up, I think it's been a difficult
Getting out of coast mode.
And just starting to like engage with the story I'm writing, which is, really a powerful thought in my brain of just, the story we're all writing and how it's all going to be sung back to us. I think that's just, that is a total reality. And so for me, I think like, I don't want to be passive. I don't want to be disengaged. I want to be active, leading and, steering the ship. I want to be at the helm of the ship, not elsewhere. So that all that to be said, it's super exciting, but it's a difficult journey because, my natural bend would probably be to be a little bit more passive.
Go along.
And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of energy to step into that position.
Right. Just personality wise. And especially going up against this powerhouse called your wife, because you're not exactly a shrinking violet, young lady.
So, I know. So that being said, I think the Lord, the whole concept of the one, like the person you marry is the one. That's the concept of the one, right?
Absolutely.
The one doesn't exist as far as who you're going to marry. The one exists after marriage. That's the one.
That's right.
And so for us, it's been super fun to watch how the Lord's paired us because we are, by and large, extreme opposites.
Yeah.
Actually, they call us fire and ice on the Enneagram. We're the most dynamic, most opposing to two numbers that could be together. And we
also, there's some disclaimer there. Like, we also are very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
like,
we're very similar
compared to a lot of our friends.
So similar.
Like, we have a lot of, like, differences in the way we internally process things and how we make decisions and, like...
Well, the pace in which we want to...
Our likes, desires, passions align so much.
Well, which is how we were attracted to one another. But then once we got together and were married, there was a lot of ways we process and deal with life that were opposite. Totally. And so I, in a very healthy way, like can slow Audrey down, teach her how to Sabbath, teach her how to like sit and, watch the world, right? At a pace in which it's not blurry. Likewise, Audrey has put a fire under my butt and told me like, hey, there is a world and a life and a story we're all writing. Like, what are we going to do, accomplish and achieve instead of just letting it all kind of pass by? So we've learned to recognize that, and I think we're still obviously in the process as we're in the early chapters of our love story to come together and meet that middle spot, which I think the Lord wants every relationship, marriage specifically, to get to, is this sweet spot where it's total unity, both working in their strengths for a specific goal for the kingdom's purpose.
Well, one of the things that we can attest to is Jeremy and Audrey have an awesome marriage. You do. Absolutely. And so on the one hand, being super real and authentic in what we're talking about. But on the other hand, that's what, the 3%, because the fact of the matter is they have a beautiful, awesome marriage, and they can literally say to people, follow our example. And not very many can say that. And so that's a beautiful thing
to say. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
So in this journey of having two very different personalities, was there ever a time where you thought to yourselves, oh, I don't know if we're compatible?
Honestly, no.
So that incompatible word, did that ever float around in your mind? Because that's pretty popular out there.
Yeah. No, I would say absolutely.
That hasn't really been a thing for us. Even...
Well...
Yeah, not for... Or, I don't know. Not for me.
Yeah,
Incompatible.
I don't think incompatibility... let me be careful with what I say. I'm tempted to say incompatibility doesn't exist. Difficulties exist. That's what I'm tempted to say, but I'm not sure if that's naive and lacking perspective.
We also had that perspective going into our marriage. We knew that we weren't going to complete each other, that there's no two compatible humans. Like, we'd been mentored in that and knew like, okay, we're going to have different strengths and weaknesses that are going to complement each other in different ways, that are going to grow each other in different ways. But like, I think we knew that going in. So like, when things came up that maybe might have seemed incompatible, we were prepared for them to shift our perspective of viewing it as like, this can be a growing thing.
Nobody is compatible, right? There's just levels in which you might have to have to work together or process something together. And,
But yeah,
and
that
that's
is a
and that is your
perspective.
story, your journey. And when the Lord brings you through it, you will have a better story to write because of it, I think. Or maybe you just need that much more fixed. I don't know.
Well, go ahead, babe.
Well, I just was thinking, I don't know if you'd heard this, but on our wedding day, we overheard one of the pastors that was visiting our guest in our wedding, and he said, "Oh, well, those two are going to wake up hating each other." Yeah,
You did.
wow.
because we had such strong personalities and we were so different. And
Wow.
That's crazy.
Isn't that like, thank you for the blessings?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But of course, he was wrong. We've never, ever had a day like that in our
no,
lives.
and sometimes we even almost joke, like we wake up and we're like, "Hey, haven't hated you yet. So far, so
Yeah,
good.
that's
27 years."
so funny.
Yeah.
But I think that people can look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so different, or you're so strong, and look at that as a negative. Mm-hmm. But I love what you said, that if you go into it, or if you have that perspective of, no, this is what the Lord's doing, and he can make this into something beautiful. It doesn't have to be, conflict or hate or.
Totally.
I know that there are a lot of people listening who that incompatibility word is just bouncing around in their head. And a lot of people believe, you know what, we really are incompatible. But you know what, we're not incompatible. We're just sinful. And see, the thing is when you learn to sacrifice self on the altar of God's best, you find out, oh, wait, we can walk together in unity and love, even though we're tremendously different. Our personalities are frankly a lot like yours. It's just that Lisa is like Jeremy and Audrey's like me. We're I'm the 8, you're the 9, and you're the 9, and she's the 8. Yep. And like you said, fire and ice, right? These the most opposite or conflicting, dynamically different personalities. But you can have a beautiful marriage, and one of the things that we need to do, I think, as people, is reject the contextual description that the culture and the world brings to our marriage, because there are going to be times when marriage is challenging, and that's when we have to embrace what the Bible says, like in the challenging moment. And not buy into this idea that, well, we're incompatible, so I guess we need to ditch this situation and move on to another one. We're not incompatible. We're just sinful. And
or even just, not to soften that, but or different. We're different. So like you might respond to a situation quite differently than I would, and I'm okay with that, because that's
when you grow in that.
It's almost as if, like, to the degree in which you think you are incompatible is to the degree in which you refuse to change.
Yeah.
Amen.
I was just going to say,
Absolutely.
a willingness to change and allow your spouse to refine you and change you is such a heart posture that I think every couple has to have.
You
just have to have
the
that.
Road to Oneness, actually, in our book, we have this whole section about the culture's resistance to changing for someone when we're suggesting that, we break down
Wouldn't
why.
you want to be changed
Wouldn't
by the
you
person?
want the person you married to be a catalyst for change in your life, because they're turning you into a better version of yourself.
And they know you better than anyone else.
Yeah, and
that's in a love letter life, right?
and that's in a love letter life.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyways, I love that, Matt. That's
it's
super good.
So what would you want to say to people in terms of the place of the Bible in the process of investing in your marriage?
Central, first, go to, absolute. I mean, we like.
I think the Bible is the it's the perspective correction of our life. Like, that is how Benham Brothers said it best, right? Don't wrap the Bible around your perspectives, wrap your perspectives around the Bible.
Yeah.
I think I said that the right way.
Sounds right.
Sounds good.
right. It's like we should be molding our perspective around Scripture. And something we say all the time is, to find and still seek, now that is love. And I think that is such a core concept.
Is that original, your wording?
Yep.
Like I told you, Jeremy.
For the longest time, we thought it was like C.S. Lewis or something. For the longest time, we even quoted it on Beating 50.
There's nothing original. There's nothing original. So there are.
But it's Jer.
I have done exhaustive
He
research.
wrote it in a letter, and
we
knows?
guys can cut this out. But
No, we love that. That's awesome.
It's on our book.
No, it's on the back of the Marriage Journal, and I absolutely love that phrase, because it beautifully captures this process of being complete and still.
I think it's the story of Jesus and the church.
And how we should love the Lord. Like,
So when
to
you talk
find
about the
Jesus and
Bible-
still seek Him. Like,
Awesome.
Yeah. So going back to the question of Scripture, that is the story. If husbands are called to love their wife like Christ loved the church, well, Christ found the church, and his pursuit led him to death, right? And so to find and still seek, now that is true love. I think that's, if we can wrap our brains around that and then press into how the Bible is going to correct our perspectives on marriage, I mean, it's beautiful.
And soften our hearts towards each other, even
It's
just
what
like
builds our marriages into the representation of the gospel that they should be to the world.
yes.
And so, yeah, for us, we try to press into that, and we do a lot of that through just honestly talking to people older and wiser than us, yourselves included. So
Awesome. Well, listen, you guys, beautiful discussion. It was just super good to hear from you, hear what you have to say.
yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
And we love the fact that you guys are walking out this message and these truths in your marriage, and you are an example for a generation. And so thank you for being that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just a reminder for those of you who are listening that you can find Jeremy and Audrey. Their new book is A Love Letter Life, and it's a bestseller, and there's good reason for it. It's a very beautiful read. And also they have their marriage journal. Where can they get that marriage journal?
That's just at themarriagejournal.com.
Okay, marriagejournal.com. That's pretty easy. And it's a beautiful keepsake copy. It's a wonderful investment in your marriage.
Yeah.
Just awesome. Beautiful. So people, keep the fire alive, and don't be like that Wall Street guy who thinks that he's going to get a big return without investing $1. Right? Invest in your marriage.
So good. Amen.
All right. Well, thanks for being so open and sharing your lives with us today, you guys. Go get that journal, everybody. Really appreciate it.
And if you've enjoyed this podcast, if you would just leave a review on iTunes, and we always appreciate that. And give us a shout out on social media. It's Faithful Life Podcast, and we'd love it if you would tag us and let people know.
Absolutely. And for those of you who'd like to join us in supporting this ministry, just go to faithfulman.com, click the donate button in the menu bar, and even $5 a month is amazing. Anything. And we just want to say thank you in advance, and thank you for the people that have already done that.
very
What a
encouraging.
massive blessing. Super good. So thanks for being with us today and joining this conversation.
Remember, our God is our rock and our Redeemer.
He already knows what your week holds. He knows exactly what you are facing.
He loves you and is for you.
So this week, draw near to God, and He will draw near to you.